We've got a great little major scale neck mapping exercise going on today, and it's only 5 minutes in length, so really simple, really attainable stuff here. Now, if you're one of those people who's always jumping to the comments, saying, oh, that exercise looks boring, or the major scale's lame, or I could do something better, then you gotta go do that. All right, this might not be the exercise or the lesson or the video for you, but if you do wanna take your skills to the next level, the major scale is very freaking important, certainly for just getting comfortable on your instrument and syncing up, picking and fretting hand in a functional way, right? Patterns you will see regularly, the mind-muscle connection. But it will also give us an opportunity to map out the neck in a meaningful way. And there's lots of obviously, major scale exercises and approaches we can take, and they are already on my channel. I'm sure I will have many in the future. But anyways, if you recognize that will be a helpful skill for you in becoming a better guitar player and creating your own music and solos and things like that, then grab your guitar and let's jump in. All right, now what's so great about this exercise is that it's centered around one very small and simple shape. So the major scale, one octave of the major scale in the key of G, starting on the low E string, would look like this. Just to bake it into your system, right? That is the first shape, like I said, very simple stuff. Now we are going to take this from the low E and bring it to the A string. And it's the same exact shape. So just keep that in your brain. Oh, that's the exact same thing up here. So if you take this to another key, right? So if you feel comfortable in G and you kind of use this exercise, a handful of times, oh, I feel really good in G. Move it to A, right? Move it up 2 frets. Now you're in A, okay? And you'll be recognizing, all right, well, there's G on the low E, so I know the shape that follows. Here's G on the A string, so I know the shape that follows. So, right, pretty simple to transpose that, if you see what I'm talking about. Just find the low E note, and you'll be able to take it from there, okay? But we're gonna stay in G right now. Now, what I'm gonna do that's really helpful and makes this a more beneficial, valuable exercise is in the description. As always, if you know me, I'm a generous person. There is a free PDF download that has all of the tabs for these shapes. Okay, so I'm gonna give you this shape, and then I'll give you the broader context. So in this shape right here, we would just take that from the low E to the high E. And on top of that, I will throw in the 5th fret, the A note on the high E, just to kind of close that loop and make this one nice, beautiful shape. All right, so it'll actually end on the A note instead of on the G note, right? Okay, but you'll have this larger framework because you want to see how these shapes fit into the larger framework so you can really use them to map out the neck. Okay. And again, you'll see that this is helpful to, if you're kind of skipping the entire, vertical piece, it helps you bake in these frameworks when you move around, okay? Now, obviously we're playing, 3 strings per section, right? So low E to D, and then A to G, D to B, and then G to high E, okay? So one more time on the A string, the exact same thing as the low E. Now from the D string, it's an easy jump, right? Easy octave here, right? So again, when you want to transpose it, you already know, A and A, for example. Well, if you're like, oh, wait, where's A on the D string? You know that you can just skip a string and then 2 frets, and there you are. Anyways, again, keeping things in the key of G, I just want to show you that it's very easy to transpose. The more familiar you get with this, the more you're going to want to throw it into a key that, basically throws a wrench into your ability to conceptualize everything, okay? Now on the G string, the shape changes. Well, that's because the B string on the guitar is this whole funky mess, right? So E to A is 5 frets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A to D is 5 frets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. D to G is 5 frets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. G to B, however, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So when we get to that string, the B string, we have to shift up. And this is a great way to remind yourself of this function on the guitar, okay? And same thing when we get to the G string, right? When the root is on the G string. Well, you know, if you remember the A string, right? We kind of bring the index finger into play to, you know, make it this perfect little, you know, function of our fingers in this shape. Now we're starting on the index finger because we're shifting up, right? To the, you know, third note in the scale, as opposed to, all right? But the B string and the high E function the way the low E to the G strings functioned, all right? So it's really just that G to B relationship that's a little funky, but you want to be really familiar with that if you want to be great at the guitar. So the exercise is just, right? Low E, A, D, and like I said, you'll have these larger frameworks right next to the shapes in your PDF. Beyond that, okay, hear me out, beyond that, especially when you come up to the, you know, 12th fret, let's start with the A shape, and you'll see how they all connect right here. Notice the 12th fret is in play on the A through G string. Okay. Well, we also know the 12th fret is in play on that, you know, G, you know, starting on the G string. So we also know that all of these notes are in play, and because of the, you know, E strings being the same, we know that all of these notes are in play on the 12th fret when we're in the key of G. But if we slid that up to the key of A, we know that we have this bar on the 14th fret as well as the 2nd fret. All right. Just chew on that. I know, again, different things click for different people, so this might not make everything in the major scale or the neck click for you. I do think if you just practices, like I said, 5 minutes a day, going up to the, you know, from low E, starting on the low E to starting on the G and then back down for 5 minutes, things will start to click, I promise. That's how it is in music, where sometimes you're like, wait, why would this be helpful? And then you start to see things broaden out and you see how things are kind of clicking together. So now just from those two shapes, we realize that every note on the 12th fret is in play. Well, if we also take this shape and we move it up an octave and we start on the 15th fret, well, now we have all of these notes right here, right? So we have the 15th fret and the 17th fret on the low E, and then of course we've got the 14th fret on the A and D strings, excuse me, sorry for stumbling through this. But we also know we have the 14th fret on the G string because of that shape, 15th fret on the B string and 15th fret on the A string. So now you can think of it, right? Think about that framework of the pentatonic shape. Well, now you have this major scale kind of filling in to that shape. And then again, because of the relationship of the E strings, you can actually fill in the dots on your own. Now, Is it really simple to do that? No. So beyond the 5-minute exercise, you might take 5 or 10 minutes afterwards to kind of work through that. That's really helpful stuff. When you listen to great guitar players talking about how they learned and everything, there's often this moment where they kind of had to work through things just based on feel and using their ears and things like that, right? So I think that is really important, right? You have these kind of missing pieces inside of this puzzle when you use this exercise, but it forces your brain to fill in the gaps, because if you actually just start playing around, well, okay, this is inside of that shape. Here's this shape. Wait, the second, the shape starting from the D string is, okay, wait, this is in play. There was a B up here. So wait a second, this is in play. All of a sudden you can kind of sound that out. But like I said, in the PDF, I will give you those larger shapes so you can practice these and take a look at the missing shapes and the missing pieces as you're going through it, which I do think is helpful. So try to do it on your own, but then of course you can reference the PDF. But there it is. Start with the shape on the low E, go to the A, go to the D, go to the G, then come back down, D, A, E, A, D, G, and just go back and forth, set a 5-minute timer, and move on with your life. Great way to set up your picking hand, sync it up with your fretting hand, sync it up with your brain, because especially as you're kind of looking at the neck and filling in the blanks, that'll make your brain work. Lots of really good stuff for a really simple exercise ultimately. So anyways, if you found it helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. That's helpful for me. It pushes it to more people, which, makes me feel loved, man. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for stopping by. I will see you on the next one. Peace.